if you look at the Brazilian AI strategy, you will certainly see issues and topics such as fairness, explainability, transparency, policies for human capacity building, for instance, which are ideas that we also see very strongly in the OECD documents. So our national AI strategy was developed throughout 2020 and formally approved in 2021. And during the same period of time, the National Congress also began having more in-depth discussions. And in 2020, a bill was actually proposed, which was very strongly and very clearly inspired by the OECD recommendation on AI. In Brazil, I think it's fair to say we have a tradition of discussing issues related to the digital environment in a very multi-stakeholder manner. So there are many concerns that we should have more diverse points of view, representative of the different stakeholders and positions in society, different sectors which might be affected by AI systems. So when the committee was created, it actually drew up a working plan composed of 3 stages. The first one was actually creating the committee with these legal experts who were chosen because of their expertise. And then this committee carried out a very large number of public hearings in order to obtain technical contributions from different perspectives. Then after this first round of public hearings, we had also an international seminar in order to gain insight from different jurisdictions and different approaches towards AI regulation. And then finally, the third stage of the working plan consisted of actually drawing up the proposed legislation. So these public hearings listened to over 50 experts from different segments and different social groups. So if you look at the first version of the Bill of Law in the Chamber of Deputies, it was, I think, a very decentralized approach where there was lots of confidence, firstly, in the capacity of the private sector to self-regulate, and secondly, in the need to involve different agencies and public bodies throughout government with their own responsibilities in different sectors. And then the second proposal that came from the Committee of Legal Experts, in fact, went down a different path, because since this committee proposed a much more in-depth regulation, much more detailed, with much clearer responsibilities and obligations for those who are developing and deploying AI systems, and also a number of rights that can be invoked by individuals who are affected by AI systems, it seemed to the Committee of Legal Experts that it was important to have a more centralized governance structure. And therefore, this current proposal does in fact propose the creation of a supervisory authority, which does not, of course, eliminate the need for coordination with other previously existing governmental bodies. Every time we're discussing regulating new technologies, the issue of interoperability has to be placed with a high degree of priority, because the digital environment is, of course, essentially transnational, right? And I think that when we discuss AI, this is also a huge concern, not only because of the transnational data flows, but also because technology is sometimes developed in one country and used in another country, and we have so many companies that operate across borders, and this needs to be taken into account. The idea of incorporating mandatory risk assessments before deploying or developing certain applications of this technology. So these, I think, are common themes that we see internationally, and also in Brazil we sought to incorporate these issues while trying to maintain a balance between, on one hand, protecting human rights and making sure that individuals are at the center of this technology, the idea of human-centered AI, without, on the other hand, creating a negative environment for innovation and research and new applications which can also benefit society. We also carried out studies on benchmarking of what other countries have done. We examined over 30 different approaches. And while it's fair to say that there are not so many countries with binding legislation at this stage, I think there is in fact a global trend towards discussing legislation that becomes less abstract and perhaps more concrete in terms of its approach. So we did take this into consideration. And while of course it's necessary to take into account our own realities here and provide a Brazilian flavor towards AI regulation, I think it's fair to say that we are very much aware and very willing to engage with discussions that are being carried out in other countries and in other jurisdictions.
The objective of the Brazilian strategy to train students, professors for AI and other technology system It's one of the most important programs you have now in Brazil. Since last year, you start to put money from the MCTI to finance actions in Brazil, to work in companies and to work in institutes. You have another areas like quantum computing and IoT, but AI now it's a bigger priority. So the education preparation of the professional of the futures is one of the main topics being addressed in the Brazilian strategy. When our strategy was prepared, the following actions were already addressed in two issues. For example, expand the offer of undergraduate and graduate courses related to artificial intelligence. Stimulate the development of interpersonal and emotional skills, such as creativity and critical thinking, soft skills. We are promoted interaction programs between the private sectors and the educational institutions to allow the exchange of practical knowledge on the development and use the artificial intelligence technology. We are creating mechanisms to increase Brazilians' interest in STEAM, like mathematics, science, technology, and engineering at school age, and with a special focus on gender and race inclusion programs in these areas. Yesterday, we launched another program. The name is Ethical Hacker. This program will train 35,000 professionals on cybersecurity and privacy and AI. You have another small actions, but it's important to train young students to develop software and hardware. You are financing another one to accelerate the training of programmers and developers of web application, focus on training of insertion in the marketing. And it's very important to finance this program and to have professionals in Brazil know about this technology.
I think there's one point I'd like to add, if I may, which refers to the challenge of having a coherent and systematic approach between different pieces of legislation aimed to regulate the digital environment. So I think this is a huge challenge, not only in Brazil, but elsewhere, because we see proposed legislation on digital markets, on digital services, on misinformation, on data protection, now on AI. And I think perhaps one of the most important challenges we face here in Brazil, and I believe this is true also for other countries, is to make sure that these different pieces fit together in a manner that is coherent, that takes into account the specificities of the different approaches, that we have definitions that are sound and that can be carried across from different sectors without losing anything. And I think it's important that the AI bill also takes into account these ongoing discussions, not only in Brazil, but also globally. So.